Order, City of Forest Park, City Council meeting number 1254, July 6, 2015. Let us stand for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Burns, Cottle, Kirby, Holt,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Lives,
Here.
Southall.
Here.
Is there a motion to excuse? Mr. Myers?
Yes, I move that we excuse council members Wendell Hall and Diane Herbie
Second.
and Cottle. I'm
It's
sorry.
been moved and seconded that we excuse those three council members who are not here, Councilman Burns, Cottle, and Herbie. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to excuse, let it be known by the sign of voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those members are excused. Next item on the agenda is the minutes. You all received copies of the minutes in your package. Are there any additions or changes to the minutes? If not, the minutes will be accepted as presented. Item 3 is presentations. I see we have none on the agenda for tonight. So we go to item number 4, communications from the public. This is the time for citizens to comment on matters before council or to ask questions of concern to them. When recognized, please come forward to the podium, give your name and address, and then state your comments or questions. Council meetings are tape recorded for ease of transcriptions. Comments are limited to 5 minutes. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address council? Seeing no one, we will then move to item number 5, reports of standing committees. Councilwoman Holt, Human Resources.
I do not have a report tonight, thank you.
Okay, any questions for Councilwoman Holt? Hearing none, Councilwoman Holt, I have no items on the agenda for you for the work session on the 13th. Do you have any to add?
No, I do not, thanks.
Next committee report is Public Improvement and Facilities. Councilman Southall.
Good evening. I do not have a report for this evening for public improvements and facilities, sir.
Any questions for Councilman Southall? Hearing none, Councilman Southall, I have no items on the agenda for you. Do you have any to add?
Not at this time, sir.
Next committee report is Public Safety Committee. Councilman Lives.
Thank you. The only item I'd report is that the SRO School Resource Officer, Vida Harris, received training and a certificate and pin as a SRO officer from the state recognizing her or him. So I wanted to let everyone know that. Other than that, I have nothing else.
Thank you. Any questions for Councilman Lives? Councilman Lives, I have one item on the agenda for you for the work session on the 13th. It's amendment to the fire code orders. Do you have any to add?
No, sir.
Next report is Councilwoman Herbie. She's absent. Ways and Means, there's no report for Ways and Means, but there are items on the agenda for the work session. Mill Road Station meeting, Paul Graham's suggestion, 2016 tax budget, and special assessment for the mall. The next committee report is Community Development, Councilman Burns. Is anybody to have a report for him? None. We have 2 items on the agenda for Community Development next Monday, revision of the Carolina Business Park Development Plan and Building Code amendments. Next committee report is Law Committee, Councilwoman Cottle. There's no report for Councilwoman Cottle. And she has no items on the agenda, so for the work session. Final committee report is Intergovernmental Relations and Communications. That's my committee. I have no report for that committee, and I have no items on the agenda. That brings us to item number 7, the mayor's report. I would just briefly want to thank the citizens of Forest Park for the most part, we had a great holiday that's just passed. Then we had very few complaints or incidents. The only thing that I would ask our citizens is when you do your fireworks, and we don't prohibit people from doing them. But please try to do them before midnight. It's, it's a little, it can be a little disturbing to your neighbors when you're still setting off fireworks at between 1 and 3 a.m. And I would hope, as one person told me today they were doing it for the kids, but I couldn't imagine why the kids would have been up at 3 a.m. watching their folks set off fireworks. But again, we had a great holiday, and let's try to be a little bit considerate of the time that we do our fireworks in the future. So in my report, I'll answer any questions if there are any. Hearing none, the next report is the city manager's report. Mr. Hodges.
Thank you. I'll report two things. First, that we did hold a Records Commission meeting this evening at 7:30. And then the second item is that we have completed all the departmental reports. We included it in the council packet. We also placed it on file with the clerk of council for public inspection. That would conclude my report, but I would respond to any questions if there are any.
Any questions for the city manager? Hearing none, thank you, Mr. Hodges. Next item on the agenda is other reports. First of those being the law director, Mr. Wyckoff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since the last meeting, I've been doing some work on various administrative appeals, trying to work towards a conclusion on all of them. Also responding to some public records requests and a variety of bankruptcy issues. If there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions for the law director? Hearing none, thank you, Mr. Wyckoff. Next item on the agenda, next report is the clerk of council, Mrs. Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to report that ordinance numbers 06 and 07-2015 and resolution numbers 20 through 28-2015 were posted as required. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for clerk of council? Hearing none, that would end the reports, and we will move to item number 9, new business. First item on the new business is ordinance number 08-2015. Would the clerk please read that ordinance in full?
Ordinance number 08-2015, amending annual 2015 appropriation ordinance 02-2015. Whereas the 2015 annual appropriations was adopted by the council on December 15, 2014, and whereas the anticipated revenue and expenditures are coming in as anticipated for the general fund and the other funds of the city, and whereas appropriations must be within available resources per the Ohio Revised Code, and whereas an amended certificate of resources is being requested by the Hamilton County Budget Commission, now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Forest Park, Ohio. Section 1, that the 2015 annual appropriation ordinance 18-2014 and 6-2015 as hereby amended, making the following additional appropriations and budget modifications to the general fund. Fund Department appropriations, general fund, recreation programs, contractual services, appropriation total -$1,000. Department total $48,875. Transfers, advances, transfers, $1,000 under appropriation total. Department total $731,750. Fund total $10,880,973. Section 2, that the following budget modifications be amended for the street fund as follows. Fund Department appropriations, street fund, public works, capital outlay, debt service payments. Capital outlay appropriations total $250,100. Debt service payments $24,300. Department total $1,410,754. Fund total $1,410,754. Section 3, that the following budget modifications be amended for the Law Enforcement Trust Fund as follows. Fund Department appropriations, Law Enforcement Trust Fund, Police Services, Supplies and Materials. Appropriation total $1,200. Department total $30,200. Fund total $30,200. Section 4, that the following budget modifications be amended for the Capital Improvement Projects Fund as follows. Fund Department Appropriations, Capital Improvement Projects, Capital Improvements, Capital Outlay. Appropriation total, $226,000. Debt service payments, appropriation total, $17,600. Department total, $646,500. Fund total, $646,500. Section 5, that the following budget modifications be amended for Police Capital Equipment Fund as follows. Fund Department Appropriations, Police Capital Equipment Fund, Police Capital Equipment. Capital Outlay, appropriation total $2,000. Debt service payments, appropriation total negative $2,000. Department total $200,000. Fund total $200,000. Section 6, that the following budget modifications be amended for Fire Capital Fund as follows. Fund Department Appropriations, Fire Capital Improvement Fund, Fire Capital Improvements, Capital Outlay, appropriations total $3,500. Debt service payments, appropriations total $12,700. Department total $235,200. Fund total $235,200. Section 7, that the following budget modifications be amended for the Environmental Grant Fund as follows. Fund Department Appropriations, Environmental Grants Fund, Environmental Grant, Contractual Services, appropriation total $30,000. Department total $177,011. Fund total $177,011. Section 8, be it further ordained that the Finance Director is hereby authorized to amend and transfer the italicized and underlined amounts included in the appropriation to the fund, to the appropriate funds. This also corrects 2 clerical errors in the totals from prior ordinance 06-2015. Transfer 2015 from general fund to debt service fund 327, amount $78,750. General fund police to police capital equipment fund 402, $60,000. General fund capital improvement fund 401, $313,000. General Fund Redevelopment Plan 417, $280,000. The total general fund transfers $731,750. Transfers 2015 from Street Fund 202, capital to the Capital Outlay Fund 401, $17,000. Fire Fund 204 to the Fire Capital Fund, to the Fire Capital Improvement Fund 404, $50,000. Stormwater Management Utility Fund 505 to the Capital Improvement Fund 401, $17,000. Solid Waste Collection Fund 506 to the Capital Improvement Fund 401, $17,000. Refundable Fees Fund 801 to the General Fund, $1,200. Total other funds transfers, $102,200. Total transfers, $833,950. Section 9, this appropriation ordinance shall be enforced and take effect on its passage pursuant to the provisions of Section 1205 of the chapter of the Municipality of Forest Park, Ohio.
Is there a motion, Mr. Lives?
Thank you. I move passage of ordinance number 08-2015.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 08-2015. Is there discussion, Mr. Lives?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This ordinance pretends 3 main purposes for a reappropriation ordinance. The city needs to appropriate funds to purchase vehicles, including a street sweeper and a few other trucks and mowers. These purchases are being funded by the master lease, which was approved at the June 15th council meeting. there's a few non-general fund items that need to be appropriated. And also, lastly, there's a number of typo corrections that needed to be made, rather minor, but this was also passed on our June 15th meeting. So there's a need to pass this ordinance for appropriations. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk call the roll on ordinance number 08-2015?
Holt,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Lives.
Yes.
Southall.
Yes.
Ordinance 08-2015 passes 4-0. Next item on the agenda is item B, ordinance number 09-2015. Would the clerk please read that ordinance in full?
Ordinance number 09-2015, an ordinance providing for the issuance of not to exceed $3,795,000 in various purpose bond anticipation notes, Series 2014, first 2015 renewal by the City of Forest Park, Ohio, in anticipation of the issuance of bonds of the city and declaring an emergency. Whereas the council has previously authorized and issued notes which are about to mature and which should be refinanced in a reduced principal amount, and whereas the fiscal officer of the City of Forest Park, Ohio, has estimated the life of the improvements hereinafter described as at least 5 years, and certified the maximum maturity of the bonds is 22 years, and of the notes to be issued in anticipation thereof is 12 years. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Forest Park, Hamilton County, State of Ohio, blank members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that it is hereby declared necessary to issue bonds of the City of Forest Park, Hamilton County, Ohio, in the principal sum of not to exceed $3,795,000 for the purposes of 1, constructing road improvements to Winton and Gilmore Road, $125,000. 2, making streetscape improvements in the city, $850,000. 3, constructing improvements to Winton streetscape improvements in the city, $850,000, I just read that. 3, constructing improvements to Winton Road, $625,000. 4, constructing road improvements to Winton and Gilmore Road, $300,000. 5, constructing additions and improvements to the Police Department Evidence Room, $50,000. 6, acquiring land, financing public improvements, demolition, planning, and legal costs, $1,344,000. And 7, acquiring real estate for economic development, $501,000, which bonds shall mature over a period of 22 years and bear interest at an approximate rate of 5% per annum, payable semi-annually, and be issued under the provisions of the Uniform Public Securities Law of the Revised Code of the State of Ohio. Section 2, that it is hereby declared necessary that this council hereby determines that notes should be issued in anticipation of the issuance of said bonds. Section 3, said anticipatory notes of the City of Forest Park shall be issued under the provisions of the Uniform Public Securities Law of the Ohio Revised Code in the principal amount of not to exceed $3,795,000. Said notes shall be dated their date of issuance, be payable at maturity, and shall mature not more than 1 year from the date of their issuance. Said notes shall bear interest at such rate not to exceed 4% per annum as accepted by the city manager or the finance director, and shall be of such number and denomination as requested by the purchaser, provided that the notes shall only be issued in authorized denominations of $100,000 or integral multiplies of $5,000 in excess of $100,000. The final terms of the notes shall be set forth in the certificate of award, which is hereby authorized and which shall be executed by the city manager or the finance director, whose signature on such certificate of award shall evidence the acceptance of the final terms of the notes. Section 4, that such notes shall be executed by the city manager and the finance director and may but shall not be required to bear the seal of the corporation. Such notes shall be designated various purpose bond anticipation notes, Series 2014, first 2015 renewal, shall be payable at such bank or trust company that is a correspondent of any legal depository or the city selected by the finance director without deduction for collection, exchange, or bank service charges, and shall express upon their faces the purpose for which they are issued, and that they are issued in pursuance of this ordinance. Section 6, that said notes shall be sold to Fifth Third Securities, Inc. by the finance director at a price of not less than 97% of the par amount of the notes. The proceeds from such sale, except any premium or accrued interest thereon, shall be paid into the proper fund and used for the purpose aforesaid and for no other purpose. Section 7, that said notes shall be the full general obligation of the city and the full faith, credit, and revenue of the city of said city are hereby pledged for the prompt payment of the same. The par value to be received from the sale of the bonds anticipated by said notes and any excess funds resulting from the issue of said notes shall, to the extent necessary, be used only for the retirement of said notes at maturity, together with interest thereon, and is hereby pledged for such purpose. Section 8, that during the period while such notes are outstanding, there shall be levied on all of the taxable property of the city of Forest Park, in addition to all other taxes, a direct tax annually not less than that which would have been levied if bonds had been issued without the prior issue of such notes, provided, however, that to the extent that debt service on said notes is appropriated and paid from other sources, said tax shall be levied or collected for such purpose. Said tax shall be and is hereby ordered, computed, certified, levied, and extended upon the tax duplicate and collected by the same officers in the same manner and at the same time that taxes for general purposes for each of said years are certified, extended, and collected. Said tax shall be placed before and in preference to all other items and for the full amount thereof. The funds derived from said levy hereby required shall be placed in a separate and distinct fund, and together with interest collected on the same shall be irrevocably pledged for the payment of the principal and interest of said notes and for the bonds in anticipation of which they are issued, when and as the same falls due, provided, however, that to the extent that other resources, including service payments in lieu of taxes, are applied to the payment of interest and principal, said tax need not be levied. Section 9, the funds derived from the sale of the notes and bonds authorized by this ordinance become and they are hereby set aside and appropriated for the payment as described in this ordinance. Section 10, the city manager and finance director or either of them is hereby authorized to take all necessary steps and execute and deliver any documents necessary or appropriate to render the notes eligible for the service of the depository trust company, including book entry only status if so requested by the purchaser. Section 11, the finance director is further authorized to apply for a municipal bond rating to any rating agency or agencies she deems appropriate, and execute any and all documents required by such agency or agencies in order to obtain a rating on the notes. Section 12, all appropriate officers of the city are further authorized to make, execute, acknowledge, and deliver such closing documents, financing statements, closing certificates, and other instruments or agreements as are, in the opinion of the bond counsel, necessary to carry out the purposes of this ordinance. Section 13, this council for and on behalf of the city of Forest Park, Ohio, hereby covenants that it will restrict the use of the proceeds of the notes hereby authorized in such manner and to such extent, if any, and take such actions as may be necessary after taking into account reasonable expectations at the time the debt is incurred, so that they will not constitute obligations, the interest or on which is subject to federal income taxation or arbitrage bonds under sections 103B2 and 148 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended, and the regulations prescribed thereunder. The officer having responsibility with respect to the issuance of the notes is authorized and directed to give an appropriate certificate on behalf of the city on the date of delivery of the notes for inclusion of in the transcript of proceedings, setting forth the facts, estimates, and circumstances and reasonable expectations pertaining to the use of the proceeds thereof and the provisions of said sections 103B2 and 148 and regulations thereunder. These notes are hereby designated qualified tax-exempt obligations for the purposes set forth in Section 265B3 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended. The council of the city did not anticipate issuing more than $10 million of qualified tax-exempt obligations during the calendar year of original issuance. Section 14, that the firm of Peck, Schaefer, and Williams, a division of Densmore and Scholl LLP, is hereby engaged as the city's bond counsel, and that the city manager is hereby authorized and directed to execute and deliver the engagement letter in the form on file with the city. Section 15, this council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the adoption of this ordinance were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the revised code. Section 16, that this ordinance is hereby declared to be an emergency measure for the reason that the public peace, health, safety, and welfare of the inhabitants of the city of Forest Park require the immediate issuance of said notes to provide funds for the orderly refinancing of the road improvements and real estate acquisitions of the city, including obtaining a favorable interest rate, and this ordinance shall take effect immediately upon its adoption. Section 17, that the finance director is hereby directed to forward a certified copy of this ordinance to the county auditor of Hamilton County, Ohio.
Is there a motion, Mr. Lyles?
Can I make an observation first?
Yes.
I know there's a lot said on this, but in Section 8,
8.
where you read that the funds will be used, it should not. The word "not" was omitted.
Okay, that the funds.
It was just omitted. It's on here, but it was
Okay.
omitted when you were saying it.
Okay.
I just don't know.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks for that observation. Mr. Lyles, motion.
I would move to pass ordinance number 09, 2015.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 09-2015. Is there a discussion, Mr. Lyles?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is our annual note reissuance whereby the city needs to pass legislation that pays down our outstanding notes and issuing and renewing $3.795 million in notes. This is being passed now because council will be on recess the end of August when these outstanding notes totaling $4.495 million will be repaid. There are no new purposes issued within the notes, and there are two purposes that will be paid off: the energy conservation projects at the municipal building and the Northland streetscape design. I would therefore ask for passage. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, would the clerk call the roll, please?
Johnson,
Yes.
Lives.
Yes.
Southall,
Yes.
Holt.
Yes.
Ordinance number 09-2015 passes 4-0. Next item on the agenda, item C, resolution number 29-2015. Would the clerk please read that resolution in full?
Resolution number 29-2015, a resolution of continuing support for the Mill Creek Watershed Intergovernmental Agreement and the Mill Creek Watershed Council of Communities. Whereas on June 21st, 1995, representatives of 17 communities in the Mill Creek watershed, including the City of Forest Park, met on the banks of the Mill Creek and signed a historic intergovernmental agreement pledging to work together to save the Mill Creek and its drainage area. And whereas the intergovernmental agreement recognized that the general causes of degraded water quality conditions in the Mill Creek can be attributed to impacts of human activities and land use within the 166 square mile Mill Creek watershed, that improvement to the Mill Creek and its riparian corridor will create economic, recreational, environmental, and aesthetic benefits for present and future generations, and that balancing positive environmental changes with economic development requires awareness of the interests of all sectors which may benefit from an improvement effort. And whereas the Mill Creek Watershed Council of Communities, Inc., was formed as a Section 501c3 organization to implement the goals of the intergovernmental agreement. And whereas abundant opportunities exist for continued improvement of the Mill Creek, its riparian corridor, and its watershed, and it is recognized that continued interjurisdictional coordination and cooperation is necessary if the Mill Creek is to attain its potential as a regional resource and asset to the community. Now therefore be resolved by the Council of the City of Forest Park, Ohio. Section 1, that the City Council hereby ratifies the intergovernmental agreement, pledges to endeavor to achieve its goals, and commits to support and participate in the continuing restoration of the Mill Creek to improve environmental quality, protect the public health and welfare, and support the economic health of Hamilton and Butler counties. Section 2, that the City Council expresses its continued support of the efforts of the Watershed Council to achieve the goal of the intergovernmental agreement. Section 3, this resolution shall be in full force and take effect from and after its passage.
Okay, is there a motion, Councilman Lives?
Move passage of resolution number 29, 2015.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt resolution number 29-2015. Any discussion, Councilman Lives?
Thank you. Yes, we've been asked to approve what we have already basically been involved in support of the Mill Creek Watershed Council, has been working to improve the Mill Creek area. We've been a part of this community action, working together to restore and protect the Mill Creek watershed. So I'm asking for passage of the resolution. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll on the resolution 29-2015?
Lives,
Yes.
Southall,
Yes.
Holt,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes. Resolution 29-2015 passes 4-0. Is there any other business to come before the body? Is there any other business to come before the body? Hearing none, council meeting is adjourned.